A tutor grabs a boy's arm during a game. The other children are screaming, laughing, scratching each other. The boy isn't reacting. The tutor drives a nail into the boy's hand. Nothing. No flinch, no cry. The boy is 11 years old. His name is Baldwin, and the tutor, William of Tyre, one of the most educated men in the known world, has just realized his student has leprosy, a disease with no cure, a disease that will slowly eat his body from the outside in. 3 years later, that boy will become king, not of some quiet European duchy, king of Jerusalem, the most fought-over, most fragile, most strategically valuable piece of land on earth. He'll take the throne at 13. He'll be dead by 24. And in those 11 years, a dying teenager will outmaneuver the greatest military commander alive, expose the real reason wars are fought, and accidentally reveal 3 truths about money that nobody teaches, even 900 years later. But to understand what Baldwin figured out, you have to understand what he walked into. And what he walked into was a kingdom that was already broke. The kingdom of Jerusalem shouldn't have existed. It was a sliver of coastline, smaller than modern-day Lebanon, surrounded on every side by enemies who outnumbered it 50 to 1. It had no gold mines, limited farmland. In a bad harvest year, it couldn't feed its own people. Grain had to be imported from Muslim Syria. The kingdom literally depended on its enemies to eat. Baldwin's father left behind a treasury that ran on 3 things: port taxes from a handful of coastal cities, fees charged to Christian pilgrims visiting holy sites, and occasional tribute payments from Muslim neighbors who found it cheaper to pay than to fight. This was not an empire. This was a startup burning through its last round of funding in the most dangerous market on earth. And the 13-year-old who just inherited it couldn't even hold a sword properly. His fingers were going numb. Here's what Baldwin understood that nobody around him did. Every noble in his court saw Jerusalem through one lens: military. Build bigger walls, train more knights, launch more raids, fight harder. Baldwin saw something else entirely. He watched the port cities, Acre, Tyre, Jaffa, Beirut. And what he saw wasn't soldiers, it was money, moving. Damascus steel arriving from the east, Indian spices packed into wooden crates, Chinese silk unrolled on merchant tables, Ethiopian incense, Nubian gold, Persian carpets, Egyptian papyrus, all of it flowing through his ports, taxed at every step, on its way to the insatiable markets of Italy, France, and England. His kingdom was broke, but it was sitting on a highway, and every caravan on that highway paid a toll. Baldwin leaned into it. While his nobles argued about battle plans, he was negotiating trade agreements. While his generals wanted to attack Saladin's supply lines, Baldwin knew something they didn't. The Muslim merchants passing through his ports were paying the taxes that funded those very generals. Attack the trade, and you cut your own throat. A Muslim pilgrim traveling through the Kingdom of Jerusalem during Baldwin's reign, actually passing through enemy territory on his way to Mecca, wrote in amazement that while soldiers were skirmishing in the hills, merchants on the roads below kept trading as if nothing was happening. Business didn't stop for war, because Baldwin wouldn't let it. Now, Baldwin had a problem that trade taxes alone couldn't solve. Saladin was unifying the Muslim world. Egypt and Syria, the 2 empires flanking Baldwin's tiny kingdom, were coming under a single command for the first time in decades. Saladin wasn't just a general, he was the CEO of a merger that would create the largest military force in the region. And Baldwin's army, a few hundred knights, maybe 1,000 professional soldiers. The rest were pilgrim volunteers and mercenaries who fought when they were paid and vanished when they weren't. To survive, Baldwin needed something his kingdom didn't have: a financial system. He needed to borrow money, move it safely, and fund military campaigns that cost more than his treasury could cover. He needed a bank, and he already had one. It had been operating inside his kingdom for decades, run by monks in white robes with red crosses on their chests. The Knights Templar started as 9 men living in a donated wing of the royal palace in Jerusalem. 9 monks who volunteered to protect Christian pilgrims on the road from the coast to the holy city. That road was about 50 miles long and thick with bandits. Most pilgrims didn't survive it without protection. That was the Templars' first business model: security, bodyguards for hire. But here's where it gets extraordinary. The pilgrims they were protecting had a different problem. To make the journey from Europe to Jerusalem, you needed to carry gold and silver across thousands of miles of bandit-filled roads, through multiple kingdoms, across open seas. Carrying that much wealth was itself the biggest danger. The Templars solved it with a piece of paper. Deposit your gold at a Templar fortress in London or Paris. Receive a document with a coded inscription, a unique identifier that only the Templar network could verify. Travel to Jerusalem carrying nothing but that paper. Walk into a Templar fortress in the Holy Land, present your code, and withdraw your funds in local currency. They had just invented the wire transfer in the 12th century, 800 years before Western Union. And it didn't stop there. The Pope exempted them from all taxes. He allowed them to collect their own levies on markets and fairs. They ran agricultural estates across Europe, over 9,000 of them. They lent money to kings. They charged interest on loans, which was forbidden by the church, so they disguised it, calculating the interest up front and burying it inside the principal, calling it a fee instead of interest. Medieval creative accounting. Sound familiar? Their Paris fortress held the French royal treasury. The King of France literally stored his money inside Templar vaults. They became the financial backbone of Baldwin's kingdom and every other Crusader state. When Baldwin needed to fund a campaign against Saladin, it was Templar gold that made it possible. But here's the detail that matters for later. Remember it. The Templars had no country, no crown, no seat of power. They built the most powerful financial institution on earth using nothing but trust, bookkeeping, and stone walls. They were the medieval version of too big to fail. Remember that. It becomes important. While Baldwin was keeping his kingdom alive through trade and Templar gold, the man trying to destroy him was doing something no one expected. Saladin controlled Egypt, the richest state in the medieval world. The Nile Delta produced more food than any other region on Earth. Cairo was among the largest cities in the world. And once Saladin united Egypt and Syria, he controlled both sides of the trade corridor between Asia, Africa, and Europe. His state revenue, in modern terms, would be worth billions. He could field armies that outnumbered Baldwin's forces 10 to 1. He had more money, more men, and more territory than any ruler in the region. And he was giving it all away. Saladin was legendary for one thing above all else: generosity. Not as a political tactic, as a compulsion. He distributed gold to soldiers after every battle. He funded scholars, built hospitals, forgave enemies who surrendered. When prisoners couldn't pay ransom, he released them anyway. His treasurers begged him to stop. His advisors warned him the state coffers were thinning. Saladin reportedly smiled and said, "There are people for whom money is no more important than sand." Now here's the question you should be asking. If Saladin had all this wealth and was fighting the Crusaders, why couldn't he just buy Jerusalem outright? Why did it take him over a decade to defeat a dying teenager with a fraction of his resources? Because Baldwin understood something Saladin didn't. It's not about how much money flows through your hands. It's about the system you build to hold it. In 1177, 3 years into his reign, Baldwin did something military historians still study. Saladin marched an army of 26,000 soldiers toward Ascalon, a key coastal fortress. Baldwin had 80 knights, not 800, not 8,000, 80. He was 16 years old. His body was already weakening. His hands were losing sensation. Some accounts say he could barely grip the reins of his horse. He rode out anyway. At the Battle of Montgisard, Baldwin's tiny force, reinforced by a few hundred Templar knights, ambushed Saladin's army. The terrain favored a small, fast-moving force over a large, spread-out one. Saladin's troops panicked. What should have been a routine conquest turned into one of the worst defeats of Saladin's career. Baldwin won, not because he was stronger, because he was strategic. He chose the ground. He chose the moment. He used every resource he had, including Templar military support that was only available because of the financial relationship he'd maintained. But the clock was ticking. By 1183, Baldwin could no longer ride a horse. He was carried to the battlefield on a litter, a stretcher held by 4 men. He was blind in one eye. His limbs were failing. He was 22 years old and governing a kingdom from a bed. And still, Saladin could not take Jerusalem because the systems Baldwin built held. The trade agreements, the Templar financing, the alliance networks, the port revenues, all of it functioned even as the king's body stopped functioning. That is the most important lesson in this entire story. Baldwin built something that didn't depend on him. The system outlasted the man, at least for a while. Baldwin IV died in 1185. He was 24. Within 2 years, everything collapsed. His successors immediately destroyed what he'd built. They provoked Saladin unnecessarily, breaking a truce by attacking a Muslim trade caravan. The caravan Baldwin would have protected because it was paying taxes that funded his army. One of Baldwin's successors, Reynald of Chatillon, attacked a caravan carrying Saladin's own sister. That was the trigger. In 1187, Saladin's forces annihilated the Crusader army at the Battle of Hattin. The Templar and Hospitaller Knights, the financial and military backbone of the kingdom, were captured and executed, every single one. 3 months later, Jerusalem fell. The trade networks Baldwin had cultivated for a decade collapsed overnight. The port revenues dried up. The pilgrim economy vanished. The financial system that had kept a tiny, surrounded, bankrupt kingdom alive for nearly 90 years was gone in a matter of months. Not because of military failure, because the successors didn't understand what Baldwin understood. The money was the strategy. The trade was the defense. The system was the kingdom. Without it, Jerusalem was just another city waiting to be taken. The Templars survived the fall of Jerusalem. They relocated. They adapted. They still had their 9,000 estates across Europe, their banking network, their papal protection. For another century, they remained the most powerful financial institution on earth. Kings borrowed from them. Popes depended on them. They were untouchable until 1307, when a French king named Philip IV decided he'd had enough. Philip owed the Templars more money than he could ever repay. He'd tried to join their order. They rejected him. He'd asked for more loans. They refused. So on Friday, October 13th, 1307, and yes, that's where the superstition comes from, Philip ordered the simultaneous arrest of every Templar in France. A coordinated raid executed at dawn across the entire country. The charges were fabricated: heresy, blasphemy, crimes so absurd that even the Pope protested. But Philip didn't need the charges to be real. He needed them to be loud enough to justify seizing everything the Templars owned. The Templar leadership was tortured into false confessions and burned at the stake. And Saladin, he took Jerusalem. He built the largest empire in the Middle East. He defeated the most famous Crusader army in history. He became a legend in both the Muslim and Christian worlds. And when he died in 1193, 6 years after conquering Jerusalem, his servants opened the royal treasury. Inside, they found 1 gold ingot and 47 silver coins. Not enough to pay for his funeral. His family had to borrow money to bury him. The most powerful man in the medieval world, a man who controlled the wealth of Egypt, Syria, and the richest trade routes on earth, died with less money than a street merchant. He owned no estates, no palace, no accumulated fortune. He'd given it all away. Every coin that passed through his hands went to soldiers, scholars, hospitals, and the poor. And when he was gone, his empire fragmented within a generation. His sons fought over the pieces. The Ayyubid dynasty he founded lasted 60 years. So, a dying king, a broke sultan, and monks who became bankers. 3 stories, 3 lessons, 900 years old, still true today. The question isn't how much money you make. It's what you build that keeps working when you stop. A 13-year-old with leprosy figured that out. From a bed, while his body was failing, in a kingdom the size of a parking lot, surrounded by the largest army in the world. What's your excuse? Subscribe. The next video covers how the Medici family took everything the Templars built and turned it into the most powerful banking dynasty in history. That story is even wilder than this one.